joining us right now is Honorable Razak Atunwa, who is the Chairman, House Committee on Justice. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. There's quite a number of people are wondering what has informed this amendment to the Electoral Act and why in the year so close to an election year.
Well, let me say that every amendment bill is intended as an improvement on an existing act. And the House of Representatives, in its wisdom, thought it fit to improve the Electoral Act of 2010 so as to improve the mode and manner in which elections are conducted in Nigeria. There's nothing new in it. There's nothing sinister about the timing. We have to do our job when we're called upon to do so. And so that's what we've done.
How do you mean improve? I mean, because some people will say this should not have any effect whatsoever on the process. What we hear is a bandwagon effect. That's what it seems both chambers of the House of Representatives, beg your pardon, of the National Assembly are concerned about, and that has nothing to do with the process itself, does
Not at all, not at all. You may have your eye on a particular amendment, but let me say that the amendments proposed have the intended effect of improving the mode and manner in which elections are conducted. Look, there is what I call the Audu lacuna, where a candidate dies before the declaration of results, but after the commencement of the election. That was not catered for under the old Electoral Act. We saw Abubakar Audu died before he was declared the winner, and what happened afterwards was a conundrum, which we all jostled to and wrestled to resolve. So this part of the provisions of this amendment bill takes care of that, and I think that's a laudable thing to do. It also takes care of the time for primaries, or conduct of primaries of elections, not later than 90 days, not earlier than 120 days before a date of elections, as announced by INEC. It also takes care of the limitations on electoral expenses, presidential elections, from 1 billion to 5 billion, from 200 million naira to 1 billion naira in the case of gubernatorial elections, and so on and so forth. So there's a plethora of good things that we've done in that amendment bill.
Honourable Member, you know, with some of the provisions of the amendment that you've mentioned, these aren't the controversial ones. The controversial one is, of course, the change in the order of the elections after INEC had already declared the order of the elections. And what some observers are saying is that the switch from having the presidential election first and the gubernatorial elections first to now having National Assembly elections first is self-serving on the part of lawmakers who may be concerned that a presidential election may in some way affect their ability to become elected. What are your thoughts on that?
Not at all. For the life of me, I don't see for one moment why that should be controversial. Look, we've operated elections, we've conducted elections over the years in Nigeria, and we're growing in our understanding of how election works. Now, if you ask a cephalogist, for example, and a cephalogist will tell you voting patterns are peculiar, voting methods are peculiar, so to countries and localities. So what we've tried to do is to unbundle that lumping together of elections. So it will be clear what the mandate is, what the people are saying about the color and the nature of the National Assembly that they want, and about the color of the presidency, and of course, and about the color of each state of assembly and each state governor. So all we've done is to unbundle it. Now, whether INEC announced the dates or not, it's irrelevant to us. What matters to us is to do the right thing as and when due.
But it should be relevant to you, and the reason why they're saying that it's controversial is because the Constitution is very, very clear.
Yeah.
In Section 78, the exclusive power to organize, undertake, and supervise elections is given to INEC, and not the National Assembly. And, sir, in the third schedule, Part 1 of the same Constitution, it's very, very clear that the elections are to be organized by INEC without undue any influence from any other body. No, sir, with this act, that is now called into question because you have now reversed the order set by INEC.
Not at all, not at all. I think that's completely misconceived. Now, you refer to the third schedule, part 1, item F, which deals with INEC. It says, look, INEC has the power to organize, undertake, and supervise. Those are precise words. Organize, undertake, and supervise the elections into those various offices. Now, that's not been tampered with. The Electoral Act came in 2010. Yes, the latest Electoral Act we had in 2010. Nobody batted an eyelid. Now, that a constitutional provision is a framework. That's the bare bones. Having done that, Parliament is entitled to make laws to give flesh to the bone. And that's all what the original Electoral Act has done, and that is what the amendment of that Electoral Act is doing. It's not an interference, and nowhere will you find, let me correct you, in the Constitution that says, look, INEC has the powers without undue interference. It doesn't say that. It says INEC has the powers.
So what it does say, you looked at item F.
Yeah.
Item F is actually the one referring to the National Assembly. I was talking about item A.
Yeah, okay.
And if we're talking about the organization of the elections, if you're changing the order after INEC has set the order, that is, you have given the power to organize the election to the National Assembly.
No, we make laws for the entire federation. We make laws for the country. That is what we do. Look, the Electoral Act 2010, already as it is, gives a particular order to various items, various things. We, for example, have said in 2010, when I say we, the National Assembly, by an act has said like that there ought to be elections not later than 30 days before the date of elections and not earlier than 150 days. That is a stipulation. That is a form of regular control. That's the form of saying this is what we want as a people. It says there has to be publication of list of names and parties and so on and so forth, and we give timelines for those things within a band. So that laws are there to guide, to stipulate what the people want. And we as representatives of the people have said, look, this is what the people want, and this is what the mood of the country is. It's
interesting you say it's what the people want, because the initial question to you was that quite a number of people think that this is self-serving. I mean, when Ajuri asked you that question, he said that people believe that this is supposed to serve the interests of members of the National Assembly.
Not at all.
Because quite a number of them might not be able to get re-election if there is a bandwagon effect from the presidency.
Not at all. That presupposes that you know the outcome of any particular election. You're presupposing something or the other. Now, when you make laws, you don't presuppose. You make laws that you believe will stand the test of time. There is no bandwagon effect. If anything, it's the opposite. Because look, let me put it plainly. If you're talking of bandwagon effect and you think members are afraid of losing their seat, well, I flip it and I say, look, isn't it a bandwagon effect if you have a presidential election first, and once a particular person or party has been declared as the winner of the presidential election, then it has a bandwagon effect on the governorship, state assemblies, and in the National Assembly elections, because people have a feeling of wanting to belong to the winning party. So that may unduly influence the subsequent elections. So isn't it better to have those elections that will not create a bandwagon effect, get rid of your National Assembly elections, get rid of your governorship and state assembly elections, and then face squarely the presidential elections?
Some people might say that this can be interpreted for good or for bad. The question is, why did the National Assembly think it's sacrosanct to arrange it in that order?
Well, because we listen to the people. We all are representatives of the people. We all have constituency offices. We operate our MP surgeries. We sit there and we hear what the people say, and we bring it to bear on legislation.
So you really claim that this is from the people?
Of course.
Is it also from the people that the spending plan or the allowance, like say, for campaigns and in terms of monetary spending?
Yes.
Is it also from them that it be extended?
Well, you ask yourself. You ask yourself.
5 billion naira?
Yes, you ask yourself. what you were buying in the market for 10 naira 3 years ago, can you buy it for 10 naira this year? You ask yourself, as inflation increased over the years, you ask yourself, what is the exchange rate dollar to the naira, for example? So things have gone expensive, inflation has increased, so the value of the naira has not the same.
Just a moment, it's a little more pointed than that.
Yes.
I mean, you say this is from the people. Is that from the people as well, or this is some rationing from the National Assembly?
Not at all. We listen to comments from the people. We listen to our constituents, and then we bring to bear their concerns. And then,
if that is the case,
yes.
Have you heard them say that our electoral process is too expensive and we have to find a way to
yes.
ensure that we bring down
yes.
the cost
yes.
it takes to get anybody into office?
Yes.
If that's what you're hearing, how come is it then we're saying that we want to increase the spending cost from 1 billion to 5 billion now? How does that help anyone?
You misunderstand. Absolutely. People are concerned with the overall cost of elections in this country. People are very concerned, which is why in the original Act, 2010, that the expenses were capped from the presidency downwards to the state assemblies, capped. They still remain capped. What this Act has done, this amendment bill has done in that regard, is to take account of inflation. For example, we also take account of inflation where we impose fines, where we increase fines imposable by courts. So a fine, a penalty or a fine of 10,000 naira for a serious offense before, 3 years ago, is no longer acceptable. And therefore, we've increased it by various amendments. That doesn't make the headlines. Look, we say the courts no longer should fine 10,000 naira, it should now be 100,000 naira. Because what we are doing is to take account of inflation. That's all it is. But the expenses for elections remain capped at 5 billion naira for the presidency.
Are you worried about enforcement? Because we have also noticed over the years, and this is according to INEC, that the caps have never been followed. They've never been adhered to.
Well,
in many instances, the cap is there, but far more. In fact, sometimes more than 200% more is spent on trying to do the elections.
Well, obviously, there's always room for improvement. As far as we're concerned, we make those laws and we expect them to be followed to the letter. Now, it's up to the executive and those who enforce laws to ensure that they're enforced. Our duty is to make those laws. It is the duty of the executive to execute those laws and to ensure that they're followed. Now, we police as much as we can by means of oversight, and we'll raise these questions, and we'll call the various agencies to give account. But it's not our duty to police and to enforce. That is part of the job of the executive. We do our job. We do our job. That's all we do, and that's all we can do.